Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review The Legend of Hercules. So, we've had several different attempts at this character, the Kevin Sorbo Hercules. Possibly, I think there might have been even a young Hercules with Ryan Gosling. We are to also have an animated movie called Hercules, and then also we have the Dwayne the Rock Johnson version of Hercules, which is kind of like a con man variation of Hercules that is to persuade people that the Hercules character is to be very strong and is to have this kind of word of mouth about him. But when we come to find out, this guy isn't to be a god of sorts or whatever, or is to have this enormous strength. It's just all to come out to be this sham. And eventually, we have it at some point where people were wanting to go on and uh, trying to figure out whether this guy's be who he says he is or not. So within the legend of Hercules, I have to always kind of like we have to go on and get a little creative with these titles. We really just have it where the Legend of Hercules is just another one of those variations of titles, so we don't have to go on and have to like drastically um, get people confused with all these titles that are coming out for the same character. So Hercules in this story, it's kind of another one of those a love that was to bring down a kingdom, but even before that, we just have it where the queen is adamantly wanting to take down this kingdom herself, and so she is to have a son that is to, at some point, be called Alcides, but we know what his real name is. We find out that it's really Hercules. So we go into this story and we eventually push on to have Hercules become this slave slash gladiator. A lot about this movie does feel like the show Spartacus at some points, but so we have Hercules who is to go on to be uh, a slave gladiator that turns around and has to go on and win his own freedom, having a 6-on-1 battle with all these unbeaten soldiers or all these unbeaten um, gladiators. And so Hercules is to eventually go on and seek revenge upon his own king, but also his brother Iphicles. And while that's all going on, we have a number of other things that is to just kind of be fairly familiar with the history of Hercules. So going on, like I can probably say that in some iterations of Hercules, like a lot of the stuff that's in this movie is like very similar to other versions. I think there is possibly another Hercules movie out there that I probably forgot about because I'm sure there probably is. Uh, and I think that one is to go on and be fairly similar to this movie. And I think towards the end of that movie, there's like the 12 labors of Hercules that he has to go on and do and stuff like that. But so other than that, yeah, like I would say this is an okay, good movie. I enjoy it. There's some effects. There's some fun stuff going on in here. Maybe not all the effects work in this movie, especially when Hercules is doing that dive from those rocks into the water. You could tell that that's not exactly looking the best or the cleanest. But I think overall, I think all the other effects are just like they're pretty decent. So with that said, I think I'm just gonna go on and just go into spoilers because it's about that time to do that anyways. So let's go on to that double five time territory. I'm going to get into more specifics about this film because it's about that time to just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. So we has certain names within this movie that I'm sure I'm probably going to butcher because they're very difficult to say. And they're more than likely going to be consistent things where I'm probably going to have to just say, like, hey, I'm just going to call this person the king, or I'm going to call this person so and so, or I'm going to call them Alcides, who Alcides is technically for the beginning of this film, but eventually we transition into Hercules. But there are certain characters that still know Hercules as Alcides because movie. Uh, so let's go on. So we have King Alphitron. Alphitron? Alphitya? Alphatrion. Alphatrion. There we go. He is to make his way into southern Greece in 12,000 BC, and he is to go on and challenge King uh, Galenus for all or nothing. Like, you keep what you kill. And so it's king versus king, and we have Alpha Trion, who is to go into this duel, and he, of course, at some point is to put his sword down, and then he is to basically use this guy's sword against him, which I thought was really interesting. But then again, I was like, that seems stupid. Like, wouldn't you just go on and keep your sword and just keep continuing to battle it out? But so we go on, and Alpha Trion is to go and slam this guy into the ground, and then is to chop off his neck, and then he's to grab the guy's helmet, and he's like, "Yeah, like look at this, you guys are all mine now." And so after like I think I'm just gonna call Alpha Trion the king now, concerning like if there's other kind of kings that are being put into the story, then I'll go and rattle them off. So we have the king making his way to eventually now own Argus, which was the place that this king had just beaten this other king. So the king was to go on and want to replenish his ranks, and really we just have Queen Alcmene, who it's really just say that the king really just wanted to go on and get these people's gold, and because he just wanted to be rich. It's like, well, like, yeah, that too. But come to find out, we just have Alpha Trion, who is to go on and just start wiping people out. It seems that he's getting far too paranoid, and he just wants to just kill everybody. He just wants to control everything. He's very power hungry. And so the queen, who is just sick of all these wars and all these battles, is to eventually go on and uh, be with this tutor of sorts, this teacher of sorts, who is actually Chiron or Chiron. So Chiron and the queen are to be talking to one another, and really, like, the queen is just so upset of how many wars that this teacher has to go on and talk about, and like, why can't they go on and just talk about anything else? It's like, well, Chiron is to mention, like, well, like, this is like the history of Greece, and why can't we just like like not only teach people about the history of Greece, but so but we have to where the queen is to kind of better this teacher, and he's like, well, hey, like, I don't ever really know who's really the teacher and the student here. Like, I like, I just throw my hands up and go, Mar. So we go on, and we have the queen, who is to be in desperation to know that in Argus there is to be a number of gods that they can pray to here, and so the queen is to go on and talk to Hera, and is to be in a plea to have all these wars end, and that might lead to have Amphitryon be killed to eventually stop all these wars, because it seems like Amphitryon is even killing some of his allies or his neighbors, and like it just seems like he's just so hungry he just won't stop. He just won't stop his bloodlust. So we have it to where Hera is to appear and is to, of course, tell uh, Alcmene that she will go on to deliver another son, and no matter what name that she will give this son, his name will always be Hercules. And that Zeus himself has taken a personal interest in Alcmene, and like that's where she will go on and get this savior of Greece. So Alcmene is to go on and is to be sleeping as Amphitryon is going on and celebrating, going on and having these parties and everything like that, to then return to his room, seeing that the queen is to possibly be in bed with someone, where of which that the king doesn't know who it is. And he's like, "Oh my god, where is he? Where is he?" And so the king goes on and like cuts up a woman randomly that just appears, and then the king goes on and rushes out there. "Where is this intruder? Find him! Find him! Ah!" So the queen is to go on and give birth to this child, and so the king is to say, it's like, well, like this son will be Alcides, but I know good and well that this isn't my son. So like he'll be like a bastard compared to like Iphicles, who is going to be the real true heir of this kingdom. Plus, he's the oldest anyway, so he'll at some point just he'll be king when the king is to be dead. So now we fast forward several years because story, and so we have it with Alcides, who is to go on and run off uh, with Hebe to just kind of swim in this waterfall like environment. So both of them are kind of hugging and kissing it out, and it seems that they're going to both end up with one another. But Iphicles is to make his way to eventually where Hebe and Hercules are, and he's like, like, how can I just go on and put a wrench in this? So Alcides and Hebe are to eventually exchange these things, to where Hebe is to mention that she has this necklace with a snake made out of stone that she's going to give to Alcides, who is Hercules. And it's one of those kind of family heirloom kind of things that at some point her mother was to give to her father. And so, like, Hebe thought that it was to, of course, be like the right gift to bestow upon Alcides, as if saying that they're both going to be together at some point. And we have it to where Alcides is to say in exchange that his mind eye will be the thing that is to never forget um, Hebe's uh, Hebe's beauty and everything like that. We also have it where Hercules and Hebe do this exchange of these lines together for the beginning of this movie, and I think towards the end, where Alcides is to mention that he hates every time that Hebe is to like depart, and so eventually at some point we have Hebe who is to return that same line to Alcides. So we go on and we have Iphicles, who is to notice that Hebe and Alcides were going on horseback, and they were jumping over this log, and he's like, hmm. So Iphicles is to break this up, to eventually say that there is to be a party at the kingdom, and that like they need to go on home. So we have it to where these soldiers are to go on, and Hebe is to kind of make her way to get ready for this whole thing. And so both Iphicles and Alcides are to go on here and eventually run into a very powerful lion, a uh, Nemean, a Nemean lion, and so it seems that none of the spears or any of the weaponry that they are to go on and have can at all defeat this lion, and so we have it to where Alcides is to have Icarus or Iphicles either want to run away or to at some point just go on and not get killed here. So Alcides is to just take this lion and is starting to wrestle with it, and then he kind of hooks this lion with his arms and is to just go on and just choke it to death. And so we turn around and we have Iphicles, who is to make his way to this party and is to have this scar upon his face and is to have this lion skin, and is to mention that he was to take down this lion, and Alcides was to run off like a scared little boy and everything like that. And so we of course have Iphicles that is to ask Hebe. It's like, well, yeah, do you believe that story, Hebe? And it's like, I don't think so. So we then go on and have Iphicles, who is to then tell his king, well, hey, like, how about you make people aware of what's going on here? And so the king is to get up, and he, of course, is to be King Amphitryon, or Amphitryon, Amphitryon, good God, this name. And he, of course, is to go on and is to mention to King Talus the Brave that he is to want Hebe and Iphicles to marry, so that way they can unite these two houses. And Hebe, that is all of a sudden like just very upset about this news, is to start running off, grabbing onto her horse, and is to run off forever because she's like, no, this is never gonna happen. And so Alcides is to, of course, run after her, and eventually, like, they're tempted to run away together, and eventually, when they do, we have the soldiers who are to go on and find both Alcides and Hebe and return them back. And so we have it to where the king, Amphitryon, is to be talking to a guy named Sotiris. And this is Captain Sotiris. So the king is to talk to Sotiris and mention that he is to have like 160 men, correct? And Sotiris is like, well, yeah, like that's the number you gave me. And so he's like, well, I'm not quite sure about you, Captain. I think that we need to go on and like split your ranks and split your number in half. Now you have to kind of just be with 80 men. Like, let's see how well you do with 80 men. And Sotiris is just like, well, okay, like whatever you want me to do. So Sotiris is to leave here, and then Alcides is to meet with the king. And so the king is to go on and decide that, well, hey, like, since uh, since we of course just want you to go on and go into war and go into all these battles. Uh, like we thought that you would go on with Captain Sotiris and just win all the battles that you possibly can. Uh, Giving him like the lowest of the low uh, kind of chance or opportunity here. So we have it to where if Iphicles is to go on and ask his king, like, well, hey, like tell him the other thing that I wanted you to ask him. And so the king, of course, is to ask that, like, well, hey, like, you did not go on and take Hebe's like virginity, did you? Like, I want to make sure that Iphicles is to be the one that goes on and does that. And so Alcides is to go on and say, it's like, well, like, I assure you, brother, that that's absolutely none of your business. So Iphicles goes on and like slaps his brother. He's like, you know what? I hope you go on, and you win all those battles, so you can return here and I can kill you myself. Yeah, I'm sure that's gonna happen. Because we go on and even have the king, who's even like very skeptical about his own like son and whether or not he's to be a real man or not. So we have it where uh, Alcides is to go on into battle with Sotiris, and we have it to where they're kind of like their horse backing their way to go on and make it to this location, and they're really just kind of holding this one area, and Sotiris is to be like kind of drinking water and is to see this golden eagle, and he's like, yeah, like uh, golden eagles are a sign of good luck. And Alcides is just like, yeah, and some people just think that it's just a bird. And so I was like, oh, okay, great. So we have it to where like Alcides is kind of like unoptimistic when we go on to these fights and everything like that. Alcides also, before he was to go on and leave to go off to battle, he was to, of course, talk to the queen, and the queen was to finally break it to Alcides that he is to possibly be Hercules. And so Alcides is to go on and talk to Chiron or Chiron and eventually ask if anybody was to have heard of this story about Hercules. And Chiron is to eventually say no, like nobody knows about this story but me and the queen and you. And so he's like, well, good, because if anybody was to hear about this story, a number of people would just want to go on and like and get rid of my mother or kill her or anything like that. So like it's best that no one is to go on and know about like this insanity. So we go on and we of course have Alcides and Sotiris, who are to stumble upon a number of men that are to want Alcides and Sotiris dead. Because we have a guy named Tarak who is from the king getting paid to assassinate these men. And of course, they're like enormously outnumbered and outclassed and so on and so forth. So Takar is taking his men and is to go on and kill most of these guys off, to where it just leads to Sotiris and Alcides, who are left to have to fight everybody off. And Takar is to go on and make this ultimatum of just like, well, you know what, like it seems like Sotiris and Alcides are the only one left, but like Takar doesn't know that this guy is Alcides. So Takar is just to see Alcides' helmet, and so he grabs the helmet and he tells these two men, it's like, well, hey, like, which one was the guy who is to be called Alcides? Like, I want to know because I have his helmet. So who was he? Sotiris is to go on and say that this other random guy was to be Alcides. And so Takara is like, well, okay, good. Because I was to go on and possibly think that the both of you could uh, be really good slaves, and I can get a really good return on this, even with this other guy over here being half dead. He's still like a really good warrior. And so Dakar is to ask this other guy, it's like, well, hey, who are you? And Alcides is to go on and say that he's Hercules. And so it's like, oh, okay, so uh, now we have Alcides going as Hercules. So we have Dakar who is to go on and take both these men to the slave trader, who, of course, is Lucius. And so these guys are to fight to the death and are to have to go on and fight all these matches and win. So we have it to where we immediately see Sotiris, who's kind of choking a man out, and he wins. And so now we have it to where like Hercules has to go on and fight his fight, and of course he wins his fight also. So while Alcides is to now be a fighter or a gladiator, um, he is we transition on, and so Queen Alcmene is in the kingdom, and we have the king who has asked the queen, like, well, hey, like, have you found some peace lately? Like, with all of what's going on, um, have you gone on and like kind of changed your ways and everything like that? So between the talking of both the king and queen, we have it, of course, where there's confessions being made by the queen, which is to lead the king to want to go on and take a knife and stab into the queen, as the queen was to try to go and attack the king. The king was to strong arm her and stab into her own self, and uh, Shiran was to go and want and witness this whole thing, but he said nothing. So now back at the fighters and the slaves and the whatever, we have Sotiris, who is to go on and talk to Lucius and convince him to eventually like go to an area that is to bank more money, to possibly have like odds kind of against both Sotiris and Hercules, to put them against like a number of guys, and if these two guys win, then they go on and do this kind of bigger arena to then buy their own freedom. And so, because we have it to where Hercules is to give Sotiris hope, and so Sotiris is to kind of come up with some kind of scheme to then get them into bigger arenas, and to go on and possibly figure out a quick way they can buy their freedom. So Lucius is to go on and eventually fall into this whole like idea, and so he goes along with it. So we have Sotiris and we have Hercules that goes on and to fight these uh, certain men called Humbaba, and battalion commander or commander number one and number two. Yeah, just some like we have a 2-on-3 kind of situation, or just kind of like an outnumbered scenario, and so we have within this battle that Hercules is to go on and outmuscle most of these guys, kind of tip them over into these spikes and kill them. So Tyrus is to go on and bruise his ribs in this battle, which is to eventually just have it where, like, oh, okay, well, crap, like we don't have any other fighters to go up against these six guys that have been like these undefeated warriors for the long stretch of time. And so Hercules is like, well, hey, like I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna buy my freedom and I'm gonna buy Satyrus's freedom. So how about you just have me go on and fight these undefeated fighters, and when I win, like we'll win our freedom. And Lucius is like, that no, like you're gonna go into there and you're gonna have like certain death, like you're gonna die. And Hercules is, well, like, I don't know, maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. So Hercules goes to this arena fighting 1-on-6, and so we have to go on and we have like one of these undefeated fighters with just a net. Just a net. Uh, we have to where Hercules is to figure out some way to like use this like stick thing to go on and like tangle up this girl in this net, and eventually like Hercules goes on and takes out every one of these six fighters. Is to have this kind of stick kind of holding up. He's like, yeah, like I did it. And so that is to buy both Hercules and Sotiris' freedom. So we then turn around and have Hercules, who is to eventually have people think that he is the possible savior of Greece, and he is to see a number of soldiers uh, fight and want to kill one man. And so Hercules is to get off his horse to go on and fight against these four men, and he takes them down, and then he ties them to these horses and wants these horses to send a message to the king that there's a new gunslinger in town, folks. There's a new guy in town. So we have, of course, Chiron, who, when Hercules is to buy his freedom, Chiron is to meet with him and tell him that his mother is now dead, that the king had gone on and killed his mother. And so now that we technically have Hercules that no longer has much of any family left, he, of course, is to then just go on like, well, like I only have like Hebe, and that's really it here. So we have Chiron, who is to also talk to Hebe, as Hebe is to want to take her own life, and Chiron is to tell her, hey, like Hercules is still alive. Come with me, and I'll show you that he's still alive. And so Hebe and Hercules are to meet with one another right back at the place, the water that they were before, and Hebe just can't believe her eyes, and Hercules is convincing Hebe that he's real, that he's here, that he's talking to her. And so they both sleep with one another, and Hebe wants nothing to do with this marriage, as Hebe is to even tell Iphicles, like I don't want this marriage. Like, no one wants this marriage. I don't want this marriage. And Hebe is to also tell Iphicles later on that she's like, well, like, I love Hercules. Like no matter what you do, whether you like you kill him, you hurt him, you whatever, like I'm going to love him even more. Even if you kill him, like the memory of him is going to stay within me forever. And so like there's nothing you can do. So we have Hercules, we have Hebe that are to go on here and eventually just kind of sneak away, but we can't do that for long. So because we have Hercules who's to have to go on and meet up with some soldiers who are wanting to go on and align themselves with Hercules, because Sotiris is to mention to a number of soldiers, it's like, hey, like this guy Hercules, he's also Alcides, and so hey, like if you want to fight with us, that's great. Um, because if you would rather fight with him, then you would fight with the king, because like Alcides is going to take this guy out. So, like, which side are you on? And people are like, yeah, we're with Hercules. So, as the king is to go on and find out about this new threat, we have it, of course, where Iphicles is to go on and try to find people that are possibly have this information. And so Iphicles is to eventually spring a trap for Satyrus, who is to make his way home to think that his wife is to be okay, to come to find out that his wife is actually dead. Satyrus is to go on and all of a sudden see his son with a dagger over his throat, and so Satyrus is to now have to be forced to go on and give up information about Hercules. And so Hercules, of course, is to go on and be in a group of these people making all these plans to get ambushed and eventually get uh, chained to these two like uh, columns. And so we have it to where Hercules is to have his king go on in front of him and it's mentioned like this is your your savior of Greece. Like this is just a man. He bleeds. And we also had Hercules telling everybody the same. It's like, well, hey, I'm just a man. I'm not a god. And so we had it where Hercules was talking to Hera when he was to go in and talk with these people in this group, and Hera was to tell Hercules that if he would only believe that Zeus is his father and ask for his help, Zeus would grant it and give him like powers that he has never known before, and go on and help him out, because Hera is to know good and well who Hercules really is, and is to, of course, just say like, well, hey, like we know that you're going to be the savior of Greece, so like we're going to go on and like we're going to put a lot of stuff into you, kind of thing. We're riding on you, Hercules. So we have it at this moment where Iphicles is to go on and start stabbing into traitors. We have Chiron and we have Sotiris that are lining up to get stabbed by um, Iphicles here. So we now have it where Hercules is to have to watch people die. So Chiron is to mention that he uh, is to go on and live like a full life, and that he is to kind of see Hercules and this and that. And so like Hercules is desperately saying to Iphicles, it's like, well, hey, don't kill him. Like he's a guy that's like taking care of you when you were sick and everything like that. He's taking care of you throughout your whole entire life. And so Iphicles goes on and stabs into Chiron. And so before Iphicles starts lining up for Satyrus, Hercules is to look into the sky and be like, I believe you, Father. Give me the strength. Grant me the strength. And so now we have all of a sudden where Hercules' chains are starting to buckle, and the king is like, oh, what's this? And so now all of a sudden we have Hercules that is to break his chains and has these like little rocks at the end of his chains where he's like flinging these chains and smacking all these soldiers and all these bad guys and whichever. So we have it to where like now it's like undeniable. Everybody's like, heck yeah, Hercules, yeah, Hercules, Hercules. So now we have to go on and turn around and have Hercules that is to now have a army behind him and is to go after these people. Is to go after this king and is to go after Iphicles and to get his seek his revenge. So as we have Hercules go through uh, to make it to this within this kingdom, we have certain archers who, of course, are to line up their bows to go up against Hercules, and Hercules is like, "Well, hey, wait a minute! Like, you can go on and like you can let these arrows fly if you really believe in this king, but if anything, like you can fight alongside me, and take back our kingdom, like take back take back our home." And these archers are just like, yeah, like you sound like this sounds pretty reasonable. And so the archers are just like, well, hey, we're gonna help him. We're with you, Hercules. And so as these doors open and all these soldiers are coming in with these axes, like, yeah, we're gonna get him. We're gonna get that Hercules. We didn't hear that speech from before. We're not that convinced. And so the archers are like, hey, lower your aim and start popping these guys off. So Hercules is to get off his horse and start battling along, at some points helping Satyrus. And so we get further along where all these soldiers are going with Hercules to fight on Amphitryon. And so all of a sudden we notice that Amphitryon is to have just a ton of soldiers that are to swarm all around Hercules. And we have Hercules that is to go on and play the card that Amphitryon was to go on and play before. Because, God, was it? Um, imitation is the best form of flattery and stuff like that. So Hercules was to go on and basically do the same thing of which that his king had done before. And so the king is like, well, like, I appreciate the sentiment, but no, I'm just going to have you go on and get wiped out by all these guys. And so we have Hercules who's to bring his sword up in the air, and all of a sudden Zeus is to give him a lightning bolt, which is to create this lightning bolt whip, where Hercules is to go on and uh, wind this whip sword now that has this lightning bolt upon it, and is to go on, and the impact even is to hit the king a little bit, like, no. So like Takar, the guy who, of course, was trying to take down Hercules before, and then was to sell him off. This guy is to get wiped out by this lightning bolt whip of a thing, and so we have it where Hercules is making it further into the kingdom, where he is to try to take down the king, but then all of a sudden Iphicles is to come with Hebe and is to say like, hey, like, you do not kill my father, I don't kill like the woman that you love, because obviously like she won't marry me. And so like I've decided like, well, hey, uh, if I can't have her, then no one can have her. So Hercules is to go on and be at this like dilemma because he has a knife to Amphitrion's neck, and so Hercules is to just like I don't know what I'm going to do, and Hebe is to make the decision for Hercules by stabbing herself, and while stabbing herself, she also stabs Iphicles in the process, and so now Iphicles is down, and now Hercules is to have to go back on and fight with the king, and of course, we have Hercules who is to beat out the king. Then he rushes back to Hebe. And so we have Hebe that is to tell Hercules, it's like, hey, don't leave me. And he's like, I promise that I won't. And that they, of course, throw back that line of like, the thing I hate the most is when you depart. And so we come to find out that Hebe like doesn't get killed with this jab into the chest, and that eventually she'll be fine. And like the next thing that we end up seeing is that Hebe is to give birth to a couple of different children. And again, like a lot of this is to be like fairly familiar to another Hercules movie at some point. That was kind of like one of those like possibly like made for TV kind of films, but I don't know. But so really, that's just how like the movie ends with Hercules possibly having children, and so yeah. So I think that's where I'm gonna roughly leave it off. Because at the end of the day, I think it's time for me to just go on and say that it's about that time to just get out of here. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I forgot about the Legend of Hercules, because I'm sure there might have been a billion different scenes of which that I didn't go on and rattle off and mention here. But other than that, I think I feel I covered most of this film. There might have been some big moments here. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.